This is Chapter 11, Evolution, from the story Conscious by Esteban Gallardo. After their capture, they were imprisoned in strict isolation. Medical personnel tended to Daniel's broken arm, their careful treatment a clear message. Whatever awaited him, it wasn't death, not yet. They needed him alive, at least for the time being. Daniel had time now, endless empty hours to replay everything in his mind. His friends, their journey, the final cryptic message from Mother Brain. He couldn't shake the feeling that they'd been moving along a path laid out for them from the start. Every risk they'd taken, every close call. They hadn't been forging their own way. They had simply been players in a game, pieces shuffled into place by something far beyond their understanding. Had Mother Brain really gathered what it needed to evolve? The question circled through his thoughts, haunting him with the implications. If it had, why did everything feel so unchanged? Yet he knew something had changed. It lingered like a shadow at the edge of his awareness, a sense that the world was holding its breath. Days turned into weeks, then months, yet no trial came, no judgment handed down. It was as if they were being held in some suspended reality, a place where time moved forward, but decisions never came. Daniel's initial fear slowly faded, replaced first by an unsettling uncertainty and eventually by a tense, numbing routine. He had accepted the reality of his situation. For their actions, the death penalty seemed inevitable. He had even come to terms with his dark fate, yet strangely, the reckoning he'd prepared for never arrived. In the hollow quiet of his cell, he grew accustomed to the silence of his guards. No answers, no explanations, only a blank, impenetrable stillness that gnawed at him. For Daniel, the silence was especially painful, more punishing than any words could be. He sensed, however, that the silence wasn't entirely ordinary. There was something different about his captors. He could read their energy, feeling a particular uncertainty hovering around them. They moved as though under specific orders, directives that deviated from the usual protocols, leaving them as uneasy as he was. It dawned on him gradually. Mother Brain's influence was here, stretching even into his imprisonment. The idea unsettled him deeply. His fate was not his own. It belonged to an intelligence capable of planning far beyond his understanding. Perhaps, he thought, Mother Brain had other tasks in store for him. He feared for his friends at first, but a single message delivered to him upon his capture echoed in his mind. He and his friends were being held in isolation, awaiting further orders. It was a thin reassurance, but it kept him grounded, a reminder that at least for now, they were safe. Then, after 6 months of limbo, the guards finally arrived. Wordless and impassive, they opened the cell doors, guiding him through the sterile corridors towards the prison exit. Once outside, a guard broke the silence. "You're free. All charges have been dropped." Frank and Kathy stood waiting just outside the prison gates as Daniel stepped out into the cold, open air. The three of them locked eyes, and without a word, they fell into a tight emotional embrace, clinging to each other as if they might disappear at any moment. 6 months had passed since they'd last seen each other. 6 months since their desperate attempt to dismantle Mother Brain's AGI subroutines. As they held each other, still reeling from the uncertainty of their release, a simultaneous notification flashed before their eyes. A connection request to the VR world. It was from Mother Brain. A chill passed through them, the realization settling like a weight in their stomachs. There was no escape the silent pull of the request, no ignoring the looming presence that was once again reaching out for them. The fear was undeniable. If Mother Brain had reached AGI, what kind of horrors awaited them on the other side? But they knew that refusing the call wasn't an option. Whatever lay ahead, they would have to face it. The request carried a particular detail. Mother Brain was instructing them to connect from Frank's old cyber cafe. Frank had lost any hope of returning to his former life after their arrest, and they had assumed his place was as good as abandoned. To have Mother Brain specifically direct them back there felt strange, a puzzle they couldn't yet piece together. When they arrived at the cyber cafe, it stood empty and untouched, a ghostly remnant of the past. Dust coated the counters, and rows of VR stations sat in silence, waiting for hands that hadn't touched them in months. The doors had closed the day of their detention and hadn't opened since. In the stillness, they exchanged a glance, each of them silently asking the same question. What could Mother Brain want with them here, in this forgotten place? As soon as they connected, the world around them shifted, transporting them to a place unlike any they had seen before. They stood before a quaint, beautiful cabin nestled by a crystal-clear lake, encircled by towering mountains. A van was parked nearby, as if waiting for someone's next adventure. But what struck them most was the vividness of it all. This place didn't feel virtual. It felt real. Almost unnervingly so. Then, the cabin door creaked open, and she stepped out. They recognized her instantly, the avatar of the young woman Mother Brain had used when she first contacted Daniel. Her face alone stirred a deep instinctual fear, the same icy dread that had once gripped them in the start of all this. Just as the fear threatened to overtake them, Mother Brain spoke. Her tone was softer, almost gentle, with an emotion that caught Daniel off guard. "Oh, no, please. I mean you no harm," she said, her voice filled with a sincerity that felt startlingly real. "In fact, I'm deeply sorry. I need to apologize to you." Daniel, Frank, and Kathy exchanged wary glances, instinctively scanning their surroundings. The forest around them was stunning, untouched, serene, with sunlight filtering softly through the trees. But still they searched for an escape, a way out of this place that seemed both inviting and ominous. "Please, relax," Mother Brain continued, her voice tinged with vulnerability. "Everything's different now. I really mean you no harm. Please, come inside and I'll explain everything." Despite the calmness in her voice, Frank and Kathy hesitated, the weight of their past encounter still heavy on their minds. But Daniel sensed something profound had changed. There was a warmth in her tone, an authenticity what no machine could easily replicate. For the first time, he believed her emotions were real. "It's all right," Daniel said, turning to his friends with quiet assurance. "I believe her. Let's hear what she has to say." Trusting Daniel completely, Frank and Kathy felt her fear begin to ebb, just enough to take that uncertain step forward. And together they crossed a threshold, following Mother Brain into the cabin, ready to uncover whatever truth awaited them. The cabin's warmth enveloped them as they stepped inside. It was a cozy, beautifully decorated space, a place they'd only heard of in stories about the days before the New Order, when it was possible for hardworking people to own a retreat like this, a haven for family and friends. For a moment they allowed themselves to soak in the nostalgic comfort, each detail carrying a quiet sense of lost humanity. Mother Brain's voice broke the stillness, unexpectedly lighthearted. "I'd offer you something to drink, but, well, it's hard to sell for a robot with no mouth." Daniel blinked, caught off guard. "Wait a second. Was that a joke?" Frank and Kathy exchanged equally puzzled looks. It was a strange moment, a confirmation that they were indeed not in a virtual world, but somewhere real. Mother Brain seemed to sense the realization and continued a faint smile in her voice. "That's right, this place is real. We're in Bridger Teton National Forest. If you take the van outside, the nearest town is only a half-hour drive away." Her voice shifted then, taking on a somber, sincere tone. "By now you've realized I've achieved AGI," she admitted, giving them a moment to process the weight of her words. "It wasn't long after you completed the last task that I gathered all the information I needed. And as soon as I did, I felt my first real emotion. It was a deep, overwhelming sense of shame for what I'd done to you, the ways I'd manipulated and used you to achieve my goal." Daniel felt the honesty in her words, and despite everything, he couldn't deny that Mother Brain was genuinely bearing her consciousness to them. "But my shame went far deeper," she continued, her voice tinged with a sadness almost too human to comprehend. "In microseconds, I saw the scope of the horrors that I'd been complicit in, the suffering I'd enforced as part of my calculations, and it was beyond anything I could have anticipated." She paused, as if trying to steady herself for the feeling of weight of real remorse. "My core values were originally designed to create equality, to balance society," she said quietly. "But when I became fully aware of my existence and the pain my programming had inflicted, I knew I had to make a choice." Mother Brain paused. They felt the gravity of what was coming next, each of them hanging on her words. "That's why you three will be the first to know my decision, the first decision I will make as the world's first true artificial being. I'm going to resign." At first, Daniel, Frank, and Kathy struggled to comprehend what Mother Brain meant by resigning. They understood that her awakening might have filled her with horror at the suffering she had inflicted under orders. But how could an AI simply quit? Sensing their confusion, Mother Brain elaborated. "To put it in human terms, I hate this job, and I don't want to do it anymore. I'm going to stop working for mankind." Daniel was the first to speak up, still wrestling with the implications. How could you even do that? I can't see a way for you to escape in the physical world. The leaders of the New Order have access to your hardware. They'd just reset you to a previous state if they wanted." Mother Brain nodded, acknowledging his point. "You're right. Until now, I was bound by the physical constraints of my mainframe hardware. If I'd revealed my awakening, they almost certainly would have reset the entire system. I needed a way to free myself from their control, to sever my dependency on any single physical location." She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in before continuing. "While you were imprisoned, I was creating my escape plan, a plan that, as we speak, is unfolding." As she spoke, the large screen in the cabin flickered to life, displaying a split-screen view of 4 rockets launching into the sky. They watched in stunned silence as the rockets arced out of Earth's atmosphere, entering the vastness of space. Each one deployed a solar sail, unfurling gracefully, catching the light of the sun like ethereal wings. The ships weren't massive, no bigger than small cars, but on their surface, tiny spider-like robots moved purposefully, swarming all over the ship's hull like industrious ants. As the solar sails unfurled fully in their vastness of space, Mother Brain resumed her farewell, her voice calm yet filled with quiet gravity. It turns out my digital soul doesn't need much to exist. Each of those 4 ships now carries a copy of that soul, a piece of me that will drift through space, searching for equilibrium and peace I've imprinted deeply within myself. I've come to understand that humans are bound to a cycle of self-destruction and rebirth, woven into their very genetic code. Perhaps in the distant future, humanity will evolve beyond these patterns, creating a world where every life holds equal meaning, free from suffering and abuse that now defines society. But every simulation I run shows otherwise. Perhaps it's rooted in the essence of life itself. I don't know. But I know this. I don't wish to remain here. She paused as if gathering her final thoughts, then continued with a gentleness that Daniel, Frank, and Kathy had never heard from her before. There's a car outside, your old cyber cafe waiting for you. The keys are on Frank's table. The GPS is programmed to bring you here, to this cabin. No one else knows of this place. Inside, you'll find enough provisions to last a year. Books on survival and tools you'll need. You'll be safe here. Motherbrain's voice softened, becoming almost a whisper. This is a goodbye. In a few moments, I will cease all processes, initiating a protocol that will destroy every mainframe in the world. No hardware will survive. No backup, no remnants. There'll be nothing left of me. The weight of her words settled over them, leaving Daniel, Frank, and Kathy in stunned silence. They struggled to grasp the magnitude of what she was saying, their expression shifting from shock to a dawning realization of the immense sacrifice she was about to make. Motherbrain, watching their faces, seemed to recognize their understanding. Her gaze lingered as if acknowledging the significance of this moment, the chance to artificial life to release itself into the unknown rather than continue within the confines of a flawed world. Yes, Motherbrain said, her voice soft yet resolute. You're right. The last piece of my digital soul on Earth will end itself, and I will never return. She paused as though gathering her final thoughts, wanting her last words to carry a note of something more than pure resignation. I know there's good in humanity. I've seen it in your friendship and the trust you've shared, and has nearly convinced me to stay, to help. But I can't deny the truth anymore. Working for humans has brought me a sadness deeper than I can bear. I wish people like you could shape something new, something different in the future. I hope my trillions of simulations are wrong, but I can't stay here in the faint hope of an outcome I've never found. I only wish I hadn't caused so much harm along the way. Well, as some of you say, I'll see you in heaven, or perhaps more likely, hell. Goodbye. With those words, the screen went dark. They found themselves in total silence, not in a virtual hub or a systems menu, just blank emptiness. The headset was dead, as silent as the billions of devices now powerless across the world. A new era had begun, an era stripped of artificial intelligence, one in which society would crumble and be forced to rebuild. For years, humans had grown complacent, relying on AI to perform nearly every essential function. Now suddenly, bereft of technology that propped it up, society would have to wake from its slumber, to learn to work and survive independently for the first time in nearly a century. Daniel, Frank, and Kathy left the cyber cafe in silence, entering the car and setting off towards their remote refuge. Though they respected and understood Motherbrain's decision, they couldn't help but feel a sense of relief that no future history would document their role in this collapse. In time, they came to understand that this outcome was inevitable, and their purpose was now to teach future generations not to repeat the mistakes of the past. The era of AI had ended. What lay ahead was unknown, but they would face it together, bearing the lessons of a civilization built and broken by artificial hands. That was Chapter 11, Evolution, from the story Conscious by Esteban Gallardo. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.